Good morning, everybody. It's a little late for me, but here we are. So, I was struggling with what I wanted to talk about today because sometimes there's just so much, and I talk about it all the time. So, it feels repetitive to me, and yet to you, it may not be repetitive. So, we're going to talk this morning a little bit, just kind of hopefully have that free flow conversation like we had yesterday. We're going to talk about signs that insulin resistance could be you or that you are dealing with a metabolic disorder. So we're going to go over some of the top signs that I look for. And I get this list from doctors like Dr. Benjamin Bickman, who wrote this book. He's not a practicing doctor; he's a research doctor. Dr. Fung, Dr. Bosworth, a number of doctors out there who are all talking about insulin resistance and how to overcome it. Now, some people will be telling you you got to eat only vegetables, and some people will tell you you got to eat only carnivore. And what I'm going to tell you is you got to eat what's right for you. So let's dive in this morning and welcome in everybody. I am not a doctor. I am not a medical professional anymore. I used to work in the medical field, but I'm just a woman who got really sick, like many of you, and was not getting answers from my doctors. And so I stumbled on something that helped. And the caveat is we will be talking about a solution that is actually the only thing that really helped me with all of these issues. And I know there's a lot up there today. Um, so look through that list. If that sounds like you, any one of those, especially if you have two or more of those, you need to understand you're probably facing metabolic disorders and issues, even if you're thin. Okay. There's a big misnomer out there that just because you're thin means you're not sick with any of these things, or that it's not your metabolism, or that you're not affected by insulin resistance. And that's untrue. Just like some people do better on a vegan diet, some people do better on a carnivore diet. The same is true for you and insulin resistance. A 2018 study said that 88% of us were metabolically unhealthy. And just 4 years later, in 2022, another study was done, and that number had climbed from 88% to 93%, over 5% change in our metabolic decline in 4 years. So, when I started this journey, everybody was like, it's genetics. It's just genetics. Stop lying to people. And well, let's talk about genetics. Maybe it is your genetics because maybe you grew up in a household like I did where food was a reward, and every food that was a reward was something sweet. So you learned to stuff your feelings, to stuff your emotions, to elate your emotions with sugar. And you started having insulin resistance problems, diabetes problems, heart problems, energy problems, skin issues, sleep issues, all of these things. And you're like, what happened? Oh, doggone it, it's my genetics. My mom and dad, they passed this on to me through their genes. No, they didn't. They passed it on to you through their lifestyle. So that's the genetic component, is the lifestyle that you were raised in and have been taught to live in. So let's talk about that. Mm, tea. I lost an ice cube. It's over there laying there melting on my desk. Okay, so there is a genetic component that makes you more predisposed to some things, yes. But the trigger that sets it off, the trigger that pushes you over that edge, the trigger that's making you sick happens to be, for most of us, insulin resistance. It's so bad now that doctors are saying that 95% of all of our disorders and diseases that we suffer with today that are lifestyle related, including some autoimmune diseases, all are linked to our metabolism and insulin resistance. So, I was going to talk to you about signs and symptoms. Does anybody need me to recap what insulin resistance is? Are you clear on what insulin resistance is coming in here? Do you need me to maybe explain it to you? Because it's okay. A lot of people don't have a clear understanding of what insulin resistance really is. There's this buzzword going on out there, and I want to make sure everybody's clear and has a good understanding about why this is my topic of choice and why this is something that I talk about every day and try to help people with. But Okay. So put a 1 in the chat if you need me to explain insulin resistance in really simplified terms so that you have a better grasp of what it actually is. We're going to go over a lot of things this morning. And if you don't understand that, it might not make sense. Okay. So, all right, we're going to hop on in then. I'm going to skip the whole my spiel on what insulin resistance is, but I want to tell you it's all about our food and the sugar that's in our food. So we're going to start there. It's causing a spike of insulin. The sugar causes a spike of insulin, and that's where the problem starts. It's an energy dysregulation problem in our system. Now, some signs that it could be you, that right there. Okay. So whether you're heavy or thin, if you have that belly that's protruding, um, what makes the doctors money is actually the medications that they keep telling you about. So um, that's a good comment. I'm not sure, Emmy, where you're coming from with that. My view on that is because I worked in enough doctors' offices, some who never let a pharma rep in the office, and some who had pharma reps in the office 2 to 3 times a week. So um, doctors, the books that are written that teach the doctors are primarily written by big pharma or schools that are linked to big pharma, all of that. So of course doctors are learning specific things, and they're learning that, hey, if you give them this drug, that's going to help this problem. But how many people have ever been outside of like antibiotics, maybe, um, as far as a metabolic disorder, how many medications have ever cured a metabolic disorder? I can't think of any. If you know of any, put them in the chat for me, and we'll discuss that. But I can't think of a single medication in my history and in the time working in medical offices that cured a metabolic disorder. Do you know what cures a metabolic disorder? Understanding our food and what we're putting in our face and the rate at which we're putting it in our face. So that's the bottom line. Mounjaro, Ozempic, Tirzepatide, uh, come on, metformin, those are not curing the problem. Also, while we dive into the signs and symptoms, one thing that came up today that I really wanted to go over, how many of you have heard that diabetes is progressive and irreversible? That once you have diabetes type 2, you're done. You can manage the symptoms, but you cannot reverse it. How many of you guys have heard that? Put a 1 in the chat if you've heard that diabetes is progressive and not reversible. That it's just you once you've got it for life and that's it. Anybody ever heard that? Symptoms could also be caused by SIBO. I'm not as tracked on SIBO, um, but I'm going to tell you that when science is saying that 95% of our metabolic disorders are caused by insulin resistance, that's where I'm going to lean. Now, is it true that there are some other things like SIBO and whatnot that could be contributing? Yes. But is it the factor for the majority of us? Probably not. And so let me do a little bit of research on that. It's not my area of knowledge, so I'm not really well prepared to speak on that. However, I am prepared to speak on the fact that metabolic disorders have everything to do with our food, and by simply adjusting that, we can start to get better. Okay, we can overcome a lot of our issues. So, look, I know there's a lot of people out there who talk about, like Barbara O'Neill does a great job. Um, who is the other one? Sebi does a great job. Uh, then there's the medical medium who tends to blame everything on what is it that he says everything is? There's a virus. Epstein-Barr virus is what he says that it is. So you'll run into these people who say everything is related to this. So guess what? I did a lot of that for years before I found this. Jason Fung. Does Jason Fung talk about SIBO, Emmy? I've not heard him talk about SIBO. So I've got to write this down because I want to do some research so I'm better educated on that. So SIBO. Okay. So I was just listening to Dr. Fung this morning. Actually, I took sea moss and holy basil to cleanse your lungs of years of smoking. Yeah, smoking, if it's so that's probably in that 5%, right? Now, I'm not gonna lie, smoking in the absence of if we take the fact that excess sugar is a problem, if we take that off the table, say you have someone who's doing carnivore or they're not eating any sugar and they're doing all of these things, but they smoke, are they going to have a bunch of these issues? Yeah, they are. Smoking is very damaging. So I'm down with that. Like if you've been smoking and I smoke this is going to be a new one for many of you. In my college years and until I was a young adult before I got pregnant, I smoked a lot. I have an addictive personality, so it was a lot. I smoked probably a pack a day. I bet nobody would guess that from me today. And it took a long time. That nicotine is really bad for you. It took me years to get over that. In fact, there were nights where I had, because I quit cold turkey. Like I have that personality. Like I don't really ease into much. It's like step off the cliff or don't. Um, Somebody at work, because I worked for a ski wear manufacturer, designing ski wear back in the day, and one of the corporate guys was like, I bet you a steak dinner at this really great steakhouse that you can't quit smoking." And I was so sick of him. I put out the cigarette I was smoking and I never picked up another one. But for 5, 6 years afterward, I would have dreams that I was smoking. I would wake up feeling like I had smoked in a panic, like, "Oh my God, I just destroyed everything. I started smoking again." It's that addictive, you guys. Smoking is no joke. So that's what I'm going to say about that. It's not something that is in any way, shape, or form giving you health. It just is not. So, yeah, if you're suffering with heart disease, if you're suffering with memory problems, if you're suffering with joint pain and you smoke, well, then you should probably look at that. But the rest of us, we're going to take a look at insulin. Okay. Most sicknesses start in the stomach and what you put in it exactly that night. So, what's happening right now is the food that we're putting in our stomach is it's been stripped of nutrients, enzymes, and fibers. And what happens is a lot of that food just gets delivered into the small intestine and into the bloodstream too quickly. So when we have fibers wrapped around carbohydrates, it makes it like time released. So we're getting that energy a little bit at a time instead of just like this big hit of energy. So think about filling up your gas tank. You have a nozzle, you put it in the tank, and over time that tank fills up, right? But what happens if you just took like a fire hose and tried to put that up to your car and put the same amount of fuel in the car? It's going to go everywhere. It's going to create a mess. It's going to create some erosion. It's going to cause problems because it's too much too quick. The duck flower for liver detox. I don't know. Those are not my areas of expertise. Okay. So I don't know about the duck flower, to be honest, and that's another one I would have to look up. You guys, I do like looking up some of this stuff. I found a lot of really helpful things. I found a lot of things that are like, yeah, that didn't work. So back to me and not doctor, but the medical medium. Um, a great friend of mine, Steph Coke 1111, gave me his book. It's an expensive book. Um, and before this system, we were working together and we were trying to figure out my health because doctors were not. And so I did the medical medium stuff for over a year. And I had this spreadsheet pinned to my refrigerator. It was meant that I went to the store every 3 days to get all the supplies. I had a big Ninja blender on my counter to put all the stuff in. I had vegetables and kale and sea moss and all this stuff all over my counter, and I had a recipe of what I needed to do for a shake every day to try and get my diabetes under control. In a year, It didn't control anything, and my doctor finally said, We gotta put you on medication." I wasn't able to tolerate the medication, and I got really sick. So, it was at that time when the medical medium stuff wasn't moving the dial for me, when eating cleaner and doing vegan and doing all of these things wasn't moving the dial, and medications weren't moving the dial, that, and that that this simple system that I'm going to talk about came up, and I gave it a shot, and it's the one thing that actually changed my life. My doctor has even texted me and was like, "How? What is it again that you did? Because this is crazy." She had been working on my hypertension and my blood sugars for years and was not able to get it under control, and yet I went out on my own and I found a simple solution and I got it under control. And my doctor and I were friends. I worked for her for a while. We did the Golden Girls thing for a while, shared a home. So there's all of that. Now, what Trump said about bleach, I'm not ready to talk about. It's not, this is not the platform for that. But yeah, I think there's a lot of covert plans as far as our health goes, for sure, in how we're fed and how we're given solutions. So on that line, this is it's amazing to me, you guys. These talks get out of control, and it's fine because I like it. But so when we look at this issue, we know that our foods have been modified. They're either bagged, box, barcoded, or even our organic foods now have been so genetically modified that we don't understand, our bodies don't understand how to utilize it. And this has been shown. I've read study after study where, like, South Africa, they introduced some crops from our company Monsanto, and people started getting sick from the corn and the crops that they were growing. They removed those crops from the area, and people started getting better because the crops were genetically modified and people's bodies weren't understanding how to deal with it, and they started falling ill from a number of reasons. So we go from that, and we understand that big pharma and big food, there's 10, 11 companies that run almost the entirety of our food chain. Those, but big pharma, big food are the same families. Same families. So big food making you sick, big pharma saying, "I got the thing for you," and it's making you sicker, and then you're going back for more food and you're going back for more medication, and it's this big violent circle that's keeping us sick and them wealthy. Yeah, I believe that. Okay, but back to science. Does anybody want to know some signs that you could be insulin resistant, or uh, we're gonna go over some. So that belly, right? That's visceral fat. What that is, when you have a big belly and maybe you're not as thin or you have that apple shape, that's one of the first clues that you're having an insulin problem. So people are like, wait a minute, alcoholics have that big belly, and alcoholics typically have an insulin problem because most alcohol breaks down into sugar, and they're ingesting it rapidly. And so it still is causing insulin spikes and all that visceral fat. Plus, it's causing a huge load on the liver, and the liver just can't filter at that point. So, yeah, this belly. Now, the visceral fat, we have what I need you to understand is that we have two types of fat. We have the subcutaneous, meaning right under the skin fat. That's the stuff that tends to start looking lumpy and bumpy, and it's not really, it adds to our size appearance, right? But it's maybe not really harmful, yet it is. We'll talk about that later. But the fat that's underneath the muscle wall of the belly is called visceral fat. Why? It's brown fat because it has mitochondria, these little energy powerhouses in our cells. Now, the fat in this area underneath the tummy has a lot of mitochondria because it's working to keep those organs warm and cushioned and full of energy. But when we have too much insulin, we're creating too much visceral fat. Now, both the insulin and the visceral fat, something that was good, we all need visceral fat. We all need it. We don't need that much of it. Now we have a problem. So now this thing that was cushioning, comforting, giving energy, visceral fat, is starting to choke everything off. it's starting to wear everything down. It's making the liver so much heavier and unable to work. And so the liver's getting sick and you end up with cirrhosis and you end up with liver disease. And maybe you're having problems with your kidneys or your intestines or your lungs or your heart because there's so much fat around them that's visceral fat. So when you start to your brain, let's step back a second. When we have insulin resistance, when we have this excess insulin, and we need to store that energy that insulin is carrying, it's going to put it in your fat cells. But the crazy thing is, the brain with insulin resistance starts telling us to store more visceral fat. So all of a sudden, you see people with a big belly. Maybe they're thin, their arms, their legs are thin, but they got this pooch of a belly. That's the visceral fat being built up. That's the brain cueing the visceral fat buildup. That's the insulin cueing the brain to cue the visceral fat buildup. Are you hearing me? Insulin resistance is causing that big belly. That's number one sign. The number two sign I want to talk about today that we can, and so I'm going to give you some signs that you can tell without blood work, right? These first ones we're going to talk about without blood work, without extra stuff from the doctor or a lab or a scan or anything. I'm going to give you some signs that are going to tell you if you're insulin resistant. So that belly is one. The next one we're going to talk about is hypertension, close to my heart because I suffered with hypertension for years. And no doctor, I worked with multiple doctors. They cycled me through multiple medications. I was on dual therapy and statins, and they were not able to get my blood pressure down. My doctor, such a lovely lady. I'm going to name her. I think she's out in Washington State now. Brenda Shaw. What an amazing physician. She is brilliant. She is kind. She is caring. She is driven. Like, what an amazing person. But even her, she was unable to fix this for me. And I remember having conversations with her, and I could see the fear in her face about my health because my blood pressure wouldn't come down. So, if you have a blood pressure of 130 over 100 or 180, I'm sorry. Boy, am I getting this wrong because I'm thinking my numbers and everything else. 130 over 80 or higher is hypertension. So it doesn't have to be as high as mine was. And mine was, this is where the 180 comes in. Mine was 180 over 150 every single day. It would bounce around. Okay, sometimes it was way higher than that. Sometimes it was down to like 150 over 110. The best we could get it in the doctor's office was 150 over 110. And then one day, about 6 days after I stumbled on this protocol that I'm going to talk about, I started it. I went into my doctor's office, and it made enough change in that moment that my blood pressure for the first time was like 126 over 82, something like that. And I literally screamed in the office like a little girl. I had been fighting this since my early 30s, and I'm pushing 60 at that point, and nobody had ever been able to control my blood pressure. I knew that my heart was going to fail if it continued, and I got it under control by understanding insulin resistance. And I got off of 13 different medications. So that's pretty impactful. And now they're saying that 95% of hypertension is linked to a metabolic disorder. So if you have a big belly and you have hypertension, start addressing your insulin resistance. Okay. And I'm going to give you how in just a few minutes. I'm going to give you some things that you can do on your own. I'm going to give you the protocol that I used, but we're going to talk about that. So those are the first two, the big bad boys of how you can tell your insulin resistance, that big belly, hypertension. Now there's four other ways that I want to talk about that have nothing to do with blood work, that are predominantly out there that you can tell if you have these, you need to address your insulin resistance. So we talked about skin a little bit yesterday. So the next two are going to be skin. Your skin is your early warning system. There's a lot of issues that can happen with your skin with insulin resistance, but these two are what I want to talk about. These two are, I can never say the name right, Eric Cordon's, anyway, skin tags and acanthosis nigricans, dark skin patches. So both of them can happen on your neck, under your arms, in your groin. The acanthosis nigricans is dark, velvety, thick patches of skin where there's just this real big melanin. You've heard people say, I have ashy knees. What they have is insulin resistance. Okay. So that buildup of melanin is an overproduction of it because it's getting too much insulin. But anyway, those dark skin patches are insulin resistance. So I had them on my neck. I was starting to get dark patches in my groin. I was starting to get small dark patches under my arms. I definitely had dark patches on my elbows that ran all the way, like halfway down my elbows. And these were so rough and scaly, and they would catch on my clothes. They would catch on furniture. And it was annoying and it was embarrassing. And I thought they were dirty. So I'm scrubbing. How many of you guys have those dark skin patches? Does anybody or somebody in your family have those dark skin patches? And it doesn't have to be elbows, knees, groin, underarms, because like how many of us put our faces in somebody else's groin? Let's not do that. Let's just not do that. You take black seed oil and sour sop. This should help. Yeah, I did black seed oil and sour sop and maybe move the dial a little, but what I'm going to tell you actually moved the dial tremendously for me without all of those weird concoctions. Like I did black seed oil for a long time. I put it in my green shakes. And I'm not going to say that it's not good, but I'm just not going to say that it's giving everything that we need for this particular problem, Malcolm. If you want to take black seed oil, I don't see a problem with it, but there is a better way to address this metabolic issue. Okay. So skin tags, acanthosis nigricans. With insulin resistance, people think, oh, my body's just not getting enough energy in. That's not true. It's an energy dysregulation disorder. So, insulin high means that some cells are resistant to the cues of insulin bringing energy to the cell. Some cells are like, ooh, we like the drama. We're going to take in a lot more than we need. Skin tags, acanthosis nigricans. Skin tags, keratinocytes, keratin, the thing that gives your structure, your skin structure, it's overproducing. And yeah, it's overproducing in your body. So now you have all of this keratin producing skin cells, but the structure of your skin is already full. And so those excess keratinocytes need to go somewhere. And so they protrude out in these little mushroom like projections called skin tags. That has to do with you have too much sugar in your system. So insulin is delivering too much energy to those cells. You get that sugar load down, you get the insulin load down, and those skin tags go away. So look, I had them on my neck. They were starting to come in around the sides of my neck because I rubbed there a lot. Okay. I had them under my arms. I had them in my groin. It was embarrassing. I just thought, I'm a grandma now. This is what happens. My mom had them. My grandma had them. This is just what happens as we get older. Why is it then 3 years later, at the age of 60, I have no of those dark skin patches? I have no skin tags anywhere. I've never had one cut off, banded off, lasered off, anything. I addressed my insulin issue and all the skin tags. Within 3 months, all the skin tags went away. You've tried everything and can't seem to get rid of melasma. Got worse when you gained weight. Yes. Okay, perfect. Because I noticed the same thing. Sabina. So not only did I have the dark rings around my neck, not only did I have the dark patches on my elbows and my knees, but I had melasma. Okay. So melasma, I felt like I always used to kind of laugh, embarrassed laugh, right? We laugh when we're nervous. And I said I should be a character on Star Trek because I had these big patches of dark. I can't remember who was it that had those patches of darkness around their skin, but that's what I felt like. And I had to put on a ton of makeup to cover it up, especially in the sun, because then melanin is more productive. But with insulin resistance, remember these two skin issues are an overproduction. Cystic acne is an overproduction too from sugar, but these two. So keratinocytes in the skin tags, get rid of the sugar, get the insulin under control. And I'm going to show you what I did for mine in just a minute, Malcolm. Or actually, we'll just talk about it now. And then I'm going to give you two more signs and then we'll talk about it. Then we'll come back to some more signs. But so the melasma, I had no idea because none of the science that I was reading at the time talked about melasma, but I certainly noticed that my melasma got better as my acanthosis nigricans got better, and it has to do with an excess production of melanin in your skin. Now, in more highly melanated skin, that could look like light patches, where patches aren't getting enough melanin and some patches are getting excess melanin. So you have that, what is that called, you guys? That the skin condition where they have this patches of no color. They've seen that people get better from both the melasma and the word is escaping me right now, but this skin discoloration problem starts to get better when you get your insulin under control, because now energy is getting to the cells at the right amount at the right time, and it seems to ease that up. Um, and in fact, I've seen a number of pictures and stories from people who had either side of it, who got tremendously better. One of my Black cohorts, Coach Hoyd, had really bad discoloration patches all over his face, and he didn't know what it was, but he started the system for his weight, for his diabetes, and those his skin tone evened out. My skin tone evened out. Now, is it the only cause for melasma? No, I'm not going to make that claim. But look, if you could understand that insulin is causing all of this, and you have melasma, maybe you have some headaches, maybe you have some fatigue, maybe you have whatever else, then is it worth you addressing your insulin to try and get that melasma under control? Probably. So skin tags, that's all right. So we went over belly fat, hypertension, skin tags, acanthosis nigricans or dark skin patches. The last two, and then Malcolm, I'm going to tell you what we're doing. The last two are hormonal, just like insulin. And the hormones that we're talking about are our sex hormones. So this leads into PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, and I love to talk about PCOS and how insulin resistance is linked to that. It's fascinating to me how that happens. But erectile dysfunction also is linked very highly to insulin resistance. So women with PCOS have found that they're not suffering with the symptoms of PCOS. They're able to have children. Their periods are no longer sporadic and painful. Men who have erectile dysfunction and low testosterone, when they get their insulin under control, their erectile function returns and their testosterone bounces back to normal levels. Wow. From insulin, without doing any steroids, without doing any of the other crazy things that, those injections, that's what happens. So now, Malcolm, you've been asking, so I'm going to tell you what I did was I didn't even understand insulin resistance. You guys don't have to understand all of this, but I like that you do. Okay. So you've been doing this for 2 months and have noticed a big difference in your skin. Yeah. So it's crazy. Like my skin, when I first lost 50 pounds, I talk about this all the time. This piece that's a little bit droopy now was hanging down. It was like wobbling when I talked. It was so bad that some of our kind people on TikTok would talk about it on my lives, in my videos. But getting my insulin under control, allowing my skin to have regular structure has allowed me to tighten up a lot of my skin, and so that I don't have some of those problems. And here comes Jason. Good morning, Jason. So Jason did the system. Malcolm, Jason did this system when his doctors were telling him he had to go on medications, when his doctors were telling him he had to have surgery because he was over 400 pounds. His A1C was 13.3. He was having mood problems. He was having those sexual health problems. He was having a number of other problems. And he was like, I'm not doing that. And I have a text, Jason, I just found a text between you and I where you said you almost got punched by your doctor that day. Remember that when you went in, because he had been doing this system that actually is designed to help with insulin resistance. So he did this system. A few months later, he's losing weight. He's getting all of the markers that his doctor wanted him to see, but he wasn't taking not one medication. And it pissed his doctor off. Like, what do you mean? You don't need my medication. You don't need that, and you're getting better. There's no way. And I don't want to hear from you because I know everything and you're just the patient. You don't know anything. And they had a like blowout fight in the doctor's office. And Jason, being the stout, astute person that he is, won that because he's lost now over 190 pounds. He had pizza. Yo, you know what? I don't think we've ever talked about that, Jason. So this is a good revelation for me beyond all the other stuff I already knew about Jason. So he had really bad acne, skin, right? Remember, I kind of threw that in there really nonchalantly with skin tags and acanthosis nigricans, but cystic acne, the excess cholesterol that we produce from sugar, not from fats. You guys get this straight. Your dietary fats, unless they're those trans fats, omega 6s, they are not causing the problem. Saturated fats like extra virgin olive oil, avocado oil, coconut oil, butter, ghee, those are helping. Anyway, he had cystic acne. His skin is clear. He's a whole different person now. So okay, sorry, Malcolm. I know I keep getting distracted. So this is the system. Go to my profile, tap on the link up there. You're going to see it, or just message me and I'll get you the link directly so you don't have to go through all the stuff. But there's a way to get a hold of me in that link. There's my website. There's a way to order all of that. So what it is, let's make it quick because you got to go to work. All I did, and this is not meal replacement. Yes, I did some intermittent fasting, a 16-8 fast, which means normally I eat 2 meals a day and I allow my body to rest for 16 hours. That works best for most people if they do it in the evening and then skip their breakfast because they want to sit down to dinner with family and friends. So that's how we do it. You can change it, and I work with you on that too. So I have this tea, which you've been seeing me drink every morning. This gives me energy, mental clarity, has antioxidants, and I'm going really fast because he's got to go to work. But it has a number of components. Plus, it has every vitamin and mineral we need to sustain life in this tea. It's highly concentrated. It's super easy. You just tear open the top and put it in some water and drink it down, hot or cold. That's it. One in the morning, one in the afternoon. I'm going to pour a little bit of that water off. Okay, so it's this easy. The second part is this pre-meal drink that is a complex of phytosterols, plant substances, prebiotics, fibers, 7 different soluble and insoluble fibers. I didn't rip this right, so now it's going to a bugger. Whoops, I almost spilled. Okay, so oh my God. TikTok does not like us to talk about this, and yet there's everybody doing it. Okay, so I tore the top off, Malcolm. I'm just going to pour this in here. Now, I'm in a fasting day today. I'm doing a whole different fasting method, but so I'm just going to do that. Pour it. Always put the powder into the water, not the other way around. Okay, now it's in there. I'm just going to give it a shake. About 4 shakes is all I do. That's it. It's mixed. Now I'm going to drink it down. And I always get a fiber mustache. But now, this is 7 different soluble and insoluble fibers. This is helping control my blood sugars, feeding my gut microbiome. It tastes like a light orange creamsicle. Super good. I particularly have it before I eat, every time I eat. But the recommendation right now is to have it on your biggest meal. For most people, that's at dinner time when you have the most carbs. That's it. A tea in the morning, a tea in the afternoon, and a pre-meal drink before you eat. They're not meal replacements. They're simply putting back what's been stripped out of our food so that our bodies can deal with everything more normally. Okay. You love tea very much. Going to check it out. So Malcolm, this tea, I went from drinking soda to drinking black tea. And at first it was sweetened and then it was unsweetened. And so I've been a tea drinker for a while, predominantly cold tea. But this tea changed the game for me. It has a lemony taste. You'll have a choice between lemon or lemon ginger. The lemon ginger has a concentrate of ginger in it, so it has a pretty good ginger kick. Now, I like the ginger, but I was already adding ginger to all those shakes that I was making from the medical medium. So I would have lemon in there, I would have ginger in there, I would have garlic in there, I would have cayenne in there, I'd have all this stuff. But I like ginger. Ginger is also really good for the metabolism. So you can either get it lemon or lemon ginger. It tastes like a light lemonade, maybe, or a lemon iced tea. So the only things that are in here really are some stevia for a little bit of sweetness, the concentrated yerba mate plant, and a little bit of citric acid for that lemony flavor to better enhance that so that people like to drink it. But straight from this packet into a bottle like this, or I mix it up and keep it in my stainless steel mugs on ice. That's it. I have this in the morning. Then at noon, I'll mix up another one. I'll have it. And what happens with this, why this is working is not only does the tea help regulate the sugar, but it helps give me energy and satiety. So now I'm not having hunger saying, oh, I need to snack. I'm having energy, I'm having mental clarity and physical energy. So my day goes by much easier. So, caveat here, and Jason says it's amazing. It's the best thing you ever did. So, Malcolm, and here's the thing, when you order from me, I will text you. You can text back and forth with me personally, and we work with this with you to make it fit your lifestyle. This is not a you have to fit this particular lifestyle. We can adjust this. Okay, and we'll go over all of that. You'll get a bunch of information from me. So now the tea. Where was I at? I was going to tell you something amazing, and then I read Jason's story, and then whatever. But it's the way my brain goes some days. The life of an ADHD woman. It's crazy. Okay, so the system actually does work. You've heard Jason talking about it. You've heard other people jump in and talk about it. It's actually helped me tremendously. I want to show you something. Let's do this. Um, I'm going to switch this up. This. Okay. That was me up there, and this is another woman that I work with. Unfortunately, I don't have Jason's picture on this slide, but I should get a new picture of Jason and get him up here. Both of us, all we did was this system. And let's put it over here for you guys on YouTube and Facebook so that you can see what they're looking at. All right. There it is. So that was me on the left. At almost 280 pounds, I had a walker, a cane. I couldn't walk up and down stairs. My joints were failing. I've had 3 joint replacements. I lost my gallbladder. My heart's been damaged. My eyesight was failing. My hair was falling out. I had PCOS. I'm in menopause now. It was like so much happening. My doctors were overwhelmed with this cavalcade of issues called Misha. And so I had 13 medications at one point. And within about a month, I walked into my kitchen and I was like, what the hell am I doing? I've never been a medication person. Um, and so I literally, and I'm not telling you to do this. Let's be clear. This is what I did. This is not what I'm telling you to do. But I worked in medical. I worked closely with my doctor. So, and I'm a little bit rogue. But I took my trash can, I pulled it up to the counter where all 13 of those medications sat, and I was just so mad that day. Like, what am I doing? And I swept all those medications into the garbage, and I never refilled another one of them ever again. Now, that was including my heart medication. So my doctor was like, oh my God, what did you just do? You're going to die. I got better. My blood pressure is now 112 over 70 every single morning, no medications. My diabetes is reversed. I went from a 7.4 A1C to a 5.3 A1C. Now, if I went back to eating all the sugar and not getting in fiber and all of that, would I get diabetes again? Yeah, I would. Let's take a look at that. If you put your hand on a hot stove and it gets burnt, and you spend time to heal that hand and you keep it away from the heat and you're protecting your hand and you're soothing it and everything, and now the hand is great, it's healed, it's fine, and you go, I healed my hand. I'm going to go put it on that burner again. And oh, my hand is burned again. Yeah, if you go back to doing the same things you were doing, you're going to end up the same way you were. But if you understand that our food is causing the problem, that nutrients being stripped out is causing the problem, that fiber being removed from our system is causing the problem, then you can have a system that actually helps you get better. All symptoms, Malcolm. So I hope this helps. And Malcolm, this whole talk, if you need to go back and review, will be on YouTube later today. And just go to Brilliant Health with Misha. Brilliant Health with Misha on YouTube, or just type in my name and it's going to come up. But all the live streams are housed there. So you can go back and look at any of them that I've done on anything that I've talked about, and you'll find all the information. All right. Since TikTok likes to try and to like, look, when I talk about big pharma and big food and keeping us sick, I always get a little bit dampened, but I don't care. I'm not going to shut up about it because people are sick. People are dying, and I want people to get better. That's it. So, they can downgrade my views all they want. I'm going to keep talking. All right, you guys. So that is everything. Now, I said I'm going to close up. Jason, I love you. I'm so I was thinking about you this morning anyway. As I was going through some success stories, I was going through a bunch of information before I got on the live, and I was thinking about you, Jason. Um, and we need to talk in the next few weeks. I know you've been busy with work, but let's talk. So, all right, some other symptoms. We went over the bulging belly, which I had, which this customer had, bulging belly, right? I don't have the bulging belly anymore. I can actually wear regular size clothes now. She is a smoker. She has struggled for years. She still, being a smoker, it's an addiction that's hard to overcome, has still been able to get rid of this belly and actually start to have a normal figure again. And it's all about understanding insulin resistance. So, belly, number one symptom. Hypertension, number two symptom. If you have hypertension, 95% of us have hypertension caused by insulin resistance. Get it under control. Skin tags, dark skin patches, PCOS, erectile dysfunction. Now, I'm going to give a calculation really quick. So if you have a pen and paper, write it down or come back and watch this, or go to my TikTok channel on the How to Tell tab. There's some calculations in there that help you understand if you're insulin resistant, even if your doctor hasn't caught it yet. Okay. So with your normal annual labs, your complete metabolic panel, you have a portion called your cholesterol panel. So you're going to go down to your cholesterol panel, and you're going to look for your triglycerides, and you're going to write that number down. And then you're going to look for high density lipoprotein, or HDL, and you're going to write that number down. Okay. What you want to do now is you're going to divide your triglycerides by your HDL. This calculation is on the NIH website. It's in Dr. Bickman's book. So when you divide those two, anything above 2 is insulin resistance. They used to say that, then they took it down to 1.5, and now I've heard rumblings that they're saying, well, maybe we should adjust that down to 1. So if your HDL triglycerides aren't 1 to 1, they're saying you're probably headed towards insulin resistance. But definitely, if it's above 1.5, let's talk about that. But extremely, both of them will say if it's 3 or higher, you have got to get this under control, or you're going to have some health implications you don't want to deal with later. Okay. So there's that calculation. Now, that doesn't require any other labs. And I cannot remember the specific calculation for this one. It's like your glucose multiplied by a fasting insulin divided by a number. That calculation is in that How to Tell tab as well. So you can order a fasting insulin test, a HOMA, HOMA -IR. It costs about $30 more to have it added on. You don't have to have any more blood drawn. It's going to come out of the brick top, or the big top with kind of like a red and black tube on it, or cap on it. It's going to come out of that anyway, so they can pull that right out of that serum. But add that to your labs if you really want to know, and then do the calculation that's in my how to tell tab, and you'll have a better idea of what your insulin resistance score is. Those are lab work ones, okay? And again, you don't have to remember those. Actually, just go back to my tab and on how to tell, and you'll find those calculations. Now, some other symptoms of insulin resistance. Are you hungry after you've just eaten? That's a body that's overloaded with sugar and is constantly hungry because you're burning sugar and not fat for fuel, and it burns through quickly. It's like building a fire and continually throwing paper on it. That paper is going to burn up quickly. Whereas if you throw a log on the fire, it's going to burn slower and longer. Fat is the log on our metabolic fire. Sugar is the paper on our metabolic fire. We've got to stop throwing paper on our metabolism and start allowing fat to fuel our metabolism. That's the bottom line. And so there's a lot of things that I can tell you to help you, but the tea actually helps this, and so does the fiber. The tea that I drink actually helps induce or create more of this glucagon like peptide 1, a peptide that is creating satiety. It's helping with insulin resistance. It's helping with a number of energy and whatnot in our body. So, glucagon like peptide 1, we produce naturally. But when we're insulin resistant, we don't produce very much of it. And so we start to have more problems. Insulin is a bully. What did Dr. Bosworth called it? A dictator. Insulin is a dictator. I love that term because when insulin is out, it tells everybody else, including other hormones, what to do. With glucagon like peptide, it's keeping that dampened down and you're not allowing yourself to get it. So, what is glucagon like peptide? Well, very simply, it's what's in those medications that people are injecting to lose weight. The problem with those injections is that that's a synthetic form of glucagon like peptide 1 that increases your glucagon like peptide artificially by 3 to 400%. Now, and I think that you all are like reasonable human beings, right? We know that when we do anything like that to the human body, 3 to 400 times what it was meant to bear, we're going to start having problems. Sure, you lost weight. Sure, but at what cost? Your face is saggy, your butt's saggy, your skin is hanging off your body. You lost a lot of muscle tone to lose that weight. That's not how I want to do it. Now, those drugs can also increase your natural glucagon like peptide by about 30%. Okay. But it's the non-breakdownable, is that a word? Type of glucagon like peptide that's causing a problem. The tea increases my own glucagon like peptide by 70%. So this is helping me stay satiated. It's helping me have energy. It's helping me have mental clarity. It's helping me with blood sugar regulation. And it's giving me a full panel of vitamins and minerals that are necessary to sustain life. That's why I love this tea. And yes, Malcolm, it tastes great. Jason has said that. You can mix other stuff with it as long as it's not things that are adding to an insulin spike. So sometimes I put matcha in there. Sometimes I put cinnamon in it. It's odd because it has a lemony taste, but I've created my own not matcha, chai spices that in the wintertime, and it's starting to get colder out now, you might see me drinking it hot. Sometimes I'll put chai spices in there to warm it up and give me that. So you can do some stuff to it, but just don't add anything that adds sugar or that kind of stuff to it. So all right, you guys, symptoms. We were supposed to be talking about symptoms. I'm going to talk about a couple more and then I'm going to hop off this morning. So we did all those other symptoms and we talked a little bit about some ways to tell with your labs, but let's go over a lot of the other symptoms that you could be having. That hunger, that after you eat, or a low blood sugar after you eat, you have an insulin dysregulation problem. Okay. Sorry, I didn't realize my headset was on this whole time. So I don't know how well you guys have been hearing me, but I hope well enough. Um, Okay, so body aches and pains, fibromyalgia. Now, there are some nerve damage causes of fibromyalgia, but in general, fibromyalgia seems to be caused by insulin resistance and this misfiring of neurons and nerves throughout the body that's causing these pains and fatigue. Plus, your body's just drained. You're getting in energy, but your body can't use it. And so you're feeling fatigued all the time. Your brain is not getting the energy and the nutrients it needs with insulin resistance. So now you're having headaches that can work into migraine headaches. And you're just fatigued and stressed and anxious and depressed and all of that. Those are all signs of insulin resistance. So antipsychotics, yes, I believe there are times they're needed. But what I think is missing, this is my opinion, what I think is missing with it is that we're not understanding how much the brain relies on energy to function properly. And if we're not getting energy to the brain, we're absolutely going to have depression, anxiety, um, Alzheimer's, all dementias, Parkinson's, all of these things because the brain just can't function in the absence of the nutrients it needs. So there's those. Absolutely, diabetes is a symptom. If you have diabetes, you already know you're insulin resistance. Insulin resistance is the root cause of diabetes. But kidney disorders, I've had people who've reversed stage 3 kidney disease by getting their insulin under control. Liver disorders, I've had people clean up their livers and start to reduce that fatty liver by getting their insulin under control. Joint problems, I had a knee. I've already had 2 hips and 1 knee replaced before I understood insulin resistance was eating my joints up. My other knee was supposed to be replaced in 2022 and it would move and it would pop and I there was a point in time you guys where I would walk a few steps and stop. I would walk a few steps and stop and people would be like, "Why do you do that?" Because my joints, the ligaments, everything around them were slipping in and out. Painful. Yeah, it was a horrible existence. So I would have to stand there and wait for my joints to kind of like ease back into place, and then I could walk a little bit further. I don't have any of those problems now. That knee that was supposed to get replaced 2 years ago does not need to be replaced, does not cause me pain, does not have stiffness, does not have any of that because I finally started addressing insulin resistance and allowing my body to do what it's supposed to do. There's a ton of symptoms of insulin resistance. These on the list are many of them. But if you have questions, I'm not a doctor. I can't diagnose. We can have some discourse and you can go make your own decisions. But ask me. I'm more than happy to help you open your eyes and see what's happening. In the meantime, if you want to get under control, you don't need all the science knowledge, right? You don't need all of that. You just need to know that you need to feel better and that there's a simple solution. And this is it. So, 2 teas that I have throughout the day and 1 fiber that I have at some point during the day. And that's it. That's reversing diabetes for many people around the world, helping people with hypertension, Hashimoto's, PCOS, erectile dysfunction, sleep apnea, edema, neuropathy, all of those things have gotten better by just doing the protocol that I'm doing and addressing insulin resistance. All right, you guys, I'll see you tomorrow morning. Thanks for all the questions and comments. And yeah, it's frustrating that TikTok dampens these talks because who knows who's gotten in their pockets. All right, we'll talk to y'all later. Have a good day.